Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Here in the studio today, I have the incredible Jodi Clark. Now, Jodi is a business mentor. She is an alcohol-free coach, and she is the founder of SoberFlourish. Now, Jodi and I connected on social media. I think it must have been a couple of years ago now. Jodi, we're going to find out where she lives soon, but she's not in Australia. That's the beauty of social media. We connected and we've stayed in touch ever since then. So I have always wanted Jodi to come on the show. And when I told her that I was bringing the show back, we just knew that we had to sit down and record together. So I feel like this conversation is like, I know people say this, but this truly is a conversation that is such a long time coming. And I cannot wait to dive in. So without any further delay, Jodi, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you today?
Hi, Ash. I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Now tell me, what time is it over there?
It is 7 in the morning, 7 a.m.
You are a superstar. I'm so grateful that you got yourself up nice and early for this conversation today. We were trying to find that balance, right? Because I'm not a nighttime person. You're not like super morning, but we were like, we're going to make it work. We want to have this conversation. We want to share it with the world. So here we are. And tell me, where are you dialing in from?
So I'm in High Marnham, a very, very small village in the middle of nowhere in the UK.
Excellent.
We live, I think some people may know it better. It's near Sherwood Forest, where Robin Hood's from. If you've ever heard of that English tale.
We've definitely heard of that reference before. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, so I'm not too far from there. Yeah, but we are in the middle of nowhere. I'm probably about half a mile away from the River Trent. But yeah, in the countryside, it's lovely and quiet.
Beautiful. And is it cold at the moment?
Freezing, literally. I think it's probably about -2 this morning, so it's not too bad.
Have you got snow?
Not yet, but we're due it this weekend.
Oh, how exciting. I've never had a white Christmas, but I can imagine it would just be so magical.
It is, but I think I can only really remember one. I remember one when we had a super bad power cut and we were putting the milk in the snow outside because we had no electric for the fridge. That was pretty cool. That was a long time ago. I think I was in Brownies, so I would have been 9. So like Girl Guides.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, how magical. That's so funny though. All right, so let's allow our audience to get to know you a little bit better if they haven't heard of you before, Jodi. Let's kick it off with, I want to know, what does an average day look like for you? And tell me, what do you do for fun?
Okay, so an average day for me is, I'm a bit strange. I have a 5 a.m. alarm. So a 5 a.m. alarm, I get myself ready, secretly get ready in the kitchen so I don't disturb the dogs or the boys as quietly as I can. That's a deal Dale and I have. Fine, you go off and do your own thing, but do not start the chaos before we need to. So try and not wake them up. So I'll creep out of the house. I'll go about half an hour down the road to the gym and I'll do my workout, stay there far too long, get back home. And at the moment, I'm coming back for an 8 o'clock curfew to start my corporate role. I will generally do my full day working in my corporate role. And then at the end of that, it's very much either coaching in the evenings and just trying to not be riddled with mum guilt for focusing on my business. So yeah, that's my general day. And what do I do for fun? I enjoy working out, absolutely enjoy working out. But the thing at the moment that I absolutely love doing is bringing my little purpose to life, my little passion to life. So working on the business, obviously spending time with the boys too. But this is what I'm doing for fun at the moment, which feels a little bit strange to say. That's something that people may deem as work, is something that I do for fun, but I'm super passionate about it.
That's the magic, isn't it? If you can find something that you can do that pays the bills, that doesn't feel like work because you are so passionate about it and time just flies when you're in it, so it's not dragging along. I think that's like the goal so many people look for in life. So that's amazing that you've found that on the other side of sobriety. Congratulations. That's awesome, Jodi.
I'm definitely trying to weave in some more downtime. That's one focus for this year. A little bit more downtime with the kids, just in terms of holidays and kind of getting out and about a little bit more. Because you'll know yourself what it's like as you kind of get your head stuck into things, don't you? And you kind of can't come up for air. But yeah, so a little bit more travel potentially this year for fun.
Yes. Oh, I love that. You know, I was journaling and actually sharing. I ran a yoga class on New Year's Day, and I was asking everybody, the students, to set a word for the year, a word that they wanted to use. As almost like I said, put it at the top of your vision board, let it be your guiding star. And my word is expansion. And the reason I have that is because when looking back at 2024, I can see that it was a huge year and there's so much that I was proud of. but I feel like I didn't stop to take a breath to actually look up and acknowledge what was happening around me when I was in it. And it was only looking back, and to be honest, only when I was doing like an Instagram reel recap, when I was actually finding the photos, that I was able to go, holy shit, like that was an incredible year. Ash, be proud of yourself. And so when I talk about expansion, it's like expansion to have more spaciousness in my life and to be able to hold more in all areas, because I think a lot of last year felt a little bit like I was swimming really. I was kicking. Those little legs were like, you know, the duck. Yeah. And so that's, just the intention of saying I'm going to create more space. So I love that you're going to do that with travel. I think that's a beautiful idea and something you get to share with the family as well.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is that whether the reality will be the same, we'll find out. We'll find out.
Putting you on the spot, what do you think your word would be for this year?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I could feel it coming. Oh, what would my word be? I think it's potentially, like you just said there, a bit of the reflection side of things, gratitude.
Oh, beautiful.
I haven't reflected on last year at all. And I've seen obviously everybody doing their end of year reels and setting their goals and their intention. I had a call with my business mentor and a group of ladies about a week ago, and we were sort of going through goals, and I realised that I've helped so many people with their goals in the last couple of months, and I haven't focused on my own at all. And we're in the new year, and I'm trying not to let that overwhelm me, but I need to get into that myself, absolutely. But I think, yes, it would be gratitude to sit and be grateful for where I'm at. And there's that saying that you see, don't you, that kind of the 2 years ago you or 5 years ago would be so grateful for where you're at today, and it's sitting in it and soaking up what you've achieved, because I think we're quite similar in that nature. It's okay, I have these goals, and the next thing,
and then what's next? Yeah,
and what's next?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, if you could look back and say 5 years ago what you managed to achieve in 12 months, you wouldn't have believed it. So sit and just absorb it for a little while. So I definitely need to take heed of that. 100%.
It's so true. And that's for everybody listening along. You know, we're so busy doing things for everyone else, and whether, and I'm not just talking about coaches, I'm talking about anybody. If you're a parent, if you're a sibling, like, we show up for people in all of these different ways. And a lot of the time we forget to show up for ourselves, or we put ourselves at the bottom of the priority list. So this is like permission for anyone listening along to get it. And also remembering that if you haven't done your goal setting for the year and like we're nearing February, that's okay as well. Like, you can do it at any time. You can do it halfway through the year, but it's always nice I actually made space to do it before Christmas, because I knew that once Christmas hit, it was going to be this absolute whirlwind. So I cleared out an entire day. It was actually the 24th of December, and I got everything up. I whiteboarded it all and got pieces of paper stuck all over my office now, which is fantastic. So yes, you can start at any time.
It's also important, I think, because there is the other side to it as well, as if you haven't got any goals for the year, if you need to just unwind and you need to slow down a little bit. I think if I hadn't got SoberFlourish and my other elements to kind of be focusing on this year, I think I would be trying to take a few things off of the plate, because we renovated the house this year.
You had a huge year.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot going on, and I think mentally it's maybe taking a few of those things off of the agenda and just trying to kind of focus on the things that really need to happen, if that makes sense. So I think if there's anybody, like you say, listening that don't want to set these massive goals and wanted to kind of take a few things off of their list, that's okay too.
That's perfect. That's a goal, to do less. Yeah, for sure.
Gorgeousness, isn't it? We're all so different, and that's all right. You don't have to have all of these big goals. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. All right, Jodie, let's dive into your photo. So I have asked you to bring in a photo from a time in your life where you were hiding behind a smile. So this was a time where you were projecting one version of yourself to everyone around you, but the truth was you were really, really struggling on the inside. So for those who are listening along, could you please describe the photo that I'm going to bring up on the screen now? Could you please describe, firstly, what's happening in this photo, and then let's go into what was actually going on for you at that time in your life.
Okay, so we were on holiday. We were on a little steam train in Yorkshire on holiday with the boys. We were camping. And I could have given you maybe 10 different photos of around this sort of summer period. And we're, like I said, we're sat on a train. I could barely sit in the seat area in terms of the weight that I'd gained. I felt uncomfortable. The outfit that I'm wearing was my oversized black t-shirt with my black leggings, and my little flat shoes, just to try and blend in as much as possible. I would never wear bright colours. I would never be really caught out of black at all, because I wanted to just kind of, I look back now, I didn't know at the time that I was trying to do that, but it's very obvious to me now. But looking at that photo, seeing my husband Dale sat next to me, I'm not sure whether he's included on the photo or not, but he's just sat next to me. And again, it isn't about size, it's just about how I felt at the time. And he was half of my size, and I can see it in that picture there. I felt so uncomfortable, and it was just very much one of those holidays where, again, we should have been there having loads of fun with the kids, which we did do. But for me, it was still very much like, oh, when's the pub? When is it time for the pub? And possibly showing up on that train with a little bit of a hangover from last night, because even though we were camping, and if you've been camping, you know that that is not a night that you get a lot of sleep. And really, you should be trying to get a good sleep, not sitting up drinking red wine. So I would always wake up and feeling a little bit shit, and then thinking about where could I get hair of the dog, and kind of focusing on, rather than being in the moment, when's the train ride finishing so we can go to the pub?
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting in that photo and feeling really uncomfortable, not really being able to fit in. And it was one of the first times that my weight had impacted immediately how I felt as soon as I showed up for something, because I couldn't really fit into that. If you know what I mean? It wasn't a squeeze, it was just uncomfortable. And like I say, I could have given you lots and lots of different photos of that time where on the outside looked like absolutely everything was fine. Yeah, I looked like I'd gained some weight, but nobody really understood what was going on mentally for me, and the impact that that was having, and that the weight gain was actually a byproduct of how low I was and how disconnected from myself that I'd become. So yeah,
When do
not
you
the
think that started to happen? You know, like weight gain is obviously progressive.
yeah.
When was that? When do you like? Can you recall when you started to not feel connected to your body? When you started to feel low? When you started to drink more? Like, what was that sort of time in your life?
Yeah, I think it was around after I'd had my second son, Ollie. We struggled to conceive with Ollie, so we had a couple of rounds of IVF. And in once I got finally got him here, I think from when he was tiny, I started to gradually increase the volume that I was drinking. Then COVID hit. He was only 2 when COVID hit. So I think I've managed to kind of sustain it just to the weekends as he was little, because obviously it's difficult with a toddler to be able to have a problematic relationship with alcohol without everybody else being able to see it. I think it would be
Yeah.
quite obvious. But when COVID hit, it coincided with a lot of stress. Still working full time, a lot of people got put, is it furlough? I think it was furloughed, wasn't it? Where they were paid to be off, basically. That wasn't me. I was still working. We'd got a huge project at work that was started just before COVID hit. We got loads of plans, secret surprise parties, etc. All had to be cancelled that were happening the month after COVID struck.
Oh my gosh.
So then trying to work full time, and I'm sure millions of people can relate to this, trying to work full time from home, leading a team, working with overseas team in India and America, and having a 2-year-old at home, and at the time an 11-year-old or a 10-year-old, and we were deemed to be homeschooling. We were doing our best. We were trying to survive. I would never proclaim to be homeschooling because I'm not a teacher. It discredits teachers to say we were homeschooling. Hats off to the ones that actually were, but we were just trying to cope. And because I didn't have to get up and drive the next day, for me, it was very easy to start drinking more. So I'm not talking in terms of the volume that I was drinking, because I was mid-30s, and I think we all know that as we get a bit older, we can't drink as much as we could, and the hangovers last longer and the impacts are bigger and greater. It was just the frequency. I could get up and drink. I could drink every night because I didn't have to drive the next day. So all of that stress, that being at home, the constant barbecues and snacks, because the summer here was incredible that year also. So we were almost like, as much as it was stressful, we were reaching for the reward so much more as well, because we were so overwhelmed. we needed so many more of those dopamine hits. And for me, it came from sitting. And I look back now and I struggle to kind of put myself in that mindset because I have grown so much since then. But my go-to was junk food, and it was sugar, and it was wine, and it was, I'm all right. Always the next day, I'm fine. If there was to ever question if I seemed like I was tipsy the night before, oh no, I'm fine. I never let the cracks show. Nobody at work knew that I'd increased how much I was drinking. Nobody knew how much I was struggling. Dale knew. Dale did know that I was struggling mentally. We didn't know why. And only now, looking back, do I know that it was a whole culmination, and alcohol was massively to blame for the change in my mood and my mental health, without a doubt.
And did Dell try and talk to you at all at that time, or was he sort of thinking that perhaps you'd navigate through this once the stress of COVID was over?
I think, I mean, he would mention it. If I had had like a couple of weeks back to back where I was drinking daily. He's not a daily drinker at all, and he is one of those strange people that can moderate. They can just.
I've heard they exist.
Unicorns do exist on this land. He can have one. So for me, he would. If I was having a couple of weeks back to back where I was drinking, he would just say, "Jodie, you might want to knock it on the head a little bit," or "Are you drinking again?" But I was spiky, Ash. I was a bit of an arse as well, whereas I was so protective and so defensive of this little thing that I felt was mine, my release at a night time, my me time. I classed it as my me time. And I felt under threat, especially in a time like that. I felt like I hadn't got anything else. Now, if that was happening, I'd be able to be present and look and go, you've got a gorgeous 2-year-old boy that you wanted so desperately. You've got a really, really beautifully intelligent blonde hair, blue eye, older boy that's thriving. You've got a caring husband at home. You're living in a cottage in the countryside. It's red hot. Yes, okay, work is stressful, but be grateful for where you're at. You don't need to escape it. But then it was just, you can't see the wood for the trees when you're drinking so much. You just can't.
Well, it becomes your solution, right? Like alcohol for me was the way that I coped with all of that stress and that sadness and the disconnect from self. And so for someone to then suggest that I remove that, I get it. I was prickly too. I was, well, you said spiky. Like, I love that. I was like, how dare you? Especially when you've got all the stuff on the outside still looking shiny. Like I too had put on quite a lot of weight, but outside of the weight gain, I still had the job, I still had the husband, I still had the house. And so I would use that to justify, well, I don't have a problem. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not, this is like nothing to see here.
Yeah.
But I think that it really hit to the core because I knew that they were right deep down.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me wonder how long that would have gone on for as well. Had I not taken that break, I wonder how long that would have gone on for. And I don't ever have any worries that I would have ended up losing my job or anything like that because I was high functioning. Like you've just said there, it's the job, it's the showing up. We didn't never go to things that people asked us to go to. I was always there and I was done up and I got a nice outfit on and looking back now, I was obviously doing my best to paper over the cracks as best as I could. Totally
keep up the facade.
Totally oblivious to me. Completely.
So let's go there then, because I think this is a brilliant part of your story. You went on was it 100-day alcohol-free challenge? That was your sort of intention. This long-term sobriety, sober for life wasn't on your bingo card, Jodie. Tell me, how has this all unfolded?
The thought of not drinking again used to literally make the hair stand on the back of my neck because it was so ingrained in everything that we did. Our family were, I'd say, big drinkers, but they were normal drinkers from my perspective. And I was a bit of a party girl and I loved it. It's what Dale and I did for fun. It's what we did on a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night at the pub. It was just so ingrained. The thought of it being a forever thing, it was not on my agenda. And we went away. And I mentioned before about when I went on the camping trip about it being another one of those holidays where I was focusing on the alcohol. We went away on an all-inclusive holiday in 2022 and it was, again, very much one of those holidays where I was concentrating on getting back to the balcony at night time and opening that bottle of Prosecco and sitting out with my me time and looking out over the complex. Not being present with the kids, playing with the kids in the pool. What do they want to do? Where should we go? What should we do? I went through all the motions of that. I ticked all of those boxes and I looked like I was being present. And from their perspective, I probably looked like I was present. But in my head, I was just going through the motions. And it wasn't that I was sat thinking about that bottle of Prosecco, but I knew upon reflection that that was the only time I actually felt happy on that holiday, was when I was sat at night on my own, the kids were asleep, and I was on holiday finally having that. And I guess people may do that anyway with a cup of tea. They may look forward to that when you've had a stressful day with the kids, but for me it was significant. And there was a moment where we were walking back to the hotel room with a couple that we'd made friends with, and we'd gone and got our free bottle of Prosecco from the bar to take up to the balcony. And I remember the lady turning to her husband and saying, God, I wish we did that. And I remember saying to her, I wish I could go back to the room and have a cup of tea. And that was a huge moment for me, because it was a big realization that I'd never heard myself say before, but it was that I can't go back to the room and have a cup of tea. And that might sound bonkers to some people. But hearing myself say that out loud was that, oh, you can't. You actually can't.
You've actually lost the power of choice.
Because I've had a drink. And we weren't, don't get me wrong, there are obviously people kind of go and fill their boots on an all-inclusive, don't they? Whether they've got the kids there or not. And there's no judgment, you do you. We weren't like that in terms of we'd have a beer in the day, and then at night time we'd probably only have a couple, because we'd still got a little kid. Ollie was only 4, I think, and he was a handful. He's a character. What did they say? Spirited, shall we say? So we needed to be on our game for him. So, but because I'd had that one, I had no ability of then going to the room and having a cup of tea, because for me it was like floodgates. Anyway, so when we were on our flight back, I said to Dale, I'm going to take a 100-day break from alcohol, because I tried a month here and I tried a month there, and it was very much always around losing a bit of weight, always for me. So I thought I need something a bit bigger. And it was strange actually, because I've looked back through some journal entries, and I've not mentioned this before, but you heard of James Smith? The online PT. I used to follow him a long time ago in terms of like his program online, and he was doing something for 100 days, and it was committing to 100 days with no attachment at all to the outcome and what the end looks like. So don't set any goals other than the 100 days of something that you want to abstain from. And that was it. From that day one, I had no, it's going to be forever. It was just, let's get stuck in. But because the goal was big enough, I needed to really immerse myself in quit lit and distractions and new habits and healthier lifestyle, etc. Because it was too big to just white knuckle. So that 100 days was exactly where it started. And yeah, I just wanted to hold myself accountable. I set myself a little Instagram account, which are now, again, looking back, was my digital journal. And I've posted every single day since then for 2 years and 4 months. And it just kept me accountable. And don't get me wrong, it was hard, really, really hard. But after that first month, I knew that something had changed. I don't know why, and I don't know what, but at the 30-day mark, I knew that I wasn't going to drink again. And I don't know whether it was just the timings, I'd had enough of my own shit, I don't know what it was, but something I knew had changed, and I was foul about it. I was absolutely foul about it, because I can remember coming home to Dale, and I'd listened to the Alan Carr Easy Way to Quit Drinking for Women. I tried to listen to it before and I didn't really get on with it. And it's what stopped me from smoking 20 fags a day when I was younger. It stopped me out of that smoking loop. And I think I was a bit nervous about listening to it in case it actually did stop me from drinking, because I didn't actually want to. I didn't want to.
You've got to be ready, right?
And I remember going for a run and listening to the last chapter of that book. And I came home and Dale said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I said, I wasn't expecting this, and I was really, really grumpy, because I just knew that I'd brainwashed myself. That's the way I always say it, is I managed to brainwash myself into knowing I wasn't going to drink again.
Wow.
Does it sound bonkers? I think it sounds bonkers, doesn't it?
but in the best kind of way. Like, I love hearing people's journeys into sobriety because there's so many pathways. And I think, you touched on a few things there, like Quit Lit is phenomenal. Listening to podcasts, like anyone that's listening along today, if you're sober curious or maybe you are sober, it's hearing the stories, it's seeing what it looks like and the fact that it can look different in others. Like, there's a saying in the rooms of the 12-step fellowship that I'm a part of that, listen for the similarities, not the differences. And it's awesome to hear that that was your pathway. The fact that your motivation was actually weight loss. It wasn't even sobriety. Like, how incredible that you've come through a back door and then all of a sudden your life has just started to get so much better that you're like, hang on a minute, what, like, I'm not going back. When did things start to, I'm going to use the word flourish because I feel like that's perfect way. Which, by the way, your tiny little Instagram account, which totally blew up, like, it's just been such a joy to watch that grow over time as well. Like, when did life start to flourish? When did you kind of, like, I know you said 30 days was like, I'm not going back, but for me, 30 days, I was still pretty raw. When did things start to turn around and actually feel good again?
Yeah, and I say 30 days, I knew I wasn't going to drink again. It was still really hard at that point. It was just almost like, you've got to go harder. You've got to go harder because you're not going back. And like you say, it's interesting that it was a weight loss goal initially, but that's what gave me the spark, It was the spark to then want to try and help other people, because I realized that I had no idea how my relationship was. I had no idea how it was impacting my relationships, my health, my productivity, my ability to be consistent with anything. I was setting these goals and I was letting myself down. And it was, I'd say, probably after the 100-day mark where I started to really notice the differences. Because I think I'd managed to go through a few sober first and start building that sort of mental resilience and build my kind of sobriety toolkit. Right at the end of that 100 days, we got a weekend away with my friends for one of their 40th. I always joke and call her a grandma because she's a few months older than me. So she hit 40 a bit earlier than the rest of them. And that was going to be a big test for me. And she's always been a bit of a drinking buddy I've known her since I was 9. So we've always been a bit of a bad influence. We had that sort of relationship where her husband would dread it if I was going, and mine would dread it if Tara was going too.
Yeah, I know the one.
So we had her 40th, and it was a make or break for me. Either at the end of that 100 days, I was going to go, 100 days and let's get at it again, or this is it. And I remember texting her and saying, I think this is it. She's like, you're coming to my 40th and you're not going to drink. I was like, no, I'm done. So when did I think it was after that 100 days, did I realize that things were starting to change. I was starting to be more consistent with working out. And yes, the weight was coming down, but I was starting to realize that at work, I was able to hold my own. I was being more confident. I was able to kind of speak up and not second guess everything that I was saying. It was creeping into everything, absolutely everything. And Dale and I weren't arguing as much as we were either. I'd noticed I'd become more present with the kids. I mean, 100 days is only 3 and a bit months. It's still not a massive amount of time. But I'd started working with a PT, an online PT, around that time as well. And all of a sudden I was starting to see these results that I'd not been able to get to whilst I was still drinking. Because I think it's a common thing that people will drink at a weekend, then Monday to Friday, they're an absolute saint. They're eating low calorie or whatever their choice is to kind of get to that goal. And it gets to a weekend and they just like blow it. And that was me. And then, that was happening.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, like I often share with clients around this idea of weight loss and alcohol consumption, is that as long as you're consuming alcohol, particularly with women, and as we start to get older, it becomes so much harder to lose weight because the body is doing what the body is designed to do. And that means that if you're putting alcohol in your system, your body will prioritize digesting that and getting the poison out of the body before it's then going to digest the calories that you've consumed. So it's going to hold on and store way more fat and make it way harder to lose weight. So it's absolutely a must if that's a serious goal for you. And in terms of, like, I so agree. There's something, I think it's more around like the self-esteem element where once I stopped drinking, for me it was daily. once I stopped drinking every day and I started keeping that promise to myself, I started to rebuild trust with myself, which in turn started to repair my self-esteem. And then I was able to hold my own. I was able to show up and trust myself more because I was trusting myself in relation to this habit that I had not been able to get a handle on for so many years. So yeah, so many good points there. And Jodie, I have to ask, because I think a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing or have been in similar situations. I mean, I imagine it would have been really, really hard to tell Tara that you weren't going to drink at her 40th. How did you sit with the discomfort of disappointing a lifelong friend? How did you put yourself first in that moment? Because that is like serious lady balls right there.
At the time, it didn't feel like a big thing to do, but on reflection, it really is.
It's huge.
But I'd spent so much time in my head for that 100 days. And this is what I say to the women that I work with all the time. This has to become you. It will become your identity until you get through that longer period of time where you don't desire it, etc. And it's not such a big thing in your mind. But it will become something you think about all the time, and it needs to be. If it's going to work, if it's going to be sustainable, you need to treat it with as much passion and energy as you did into choosing your wine at a weekend. So I think for that 100 days, I spent so much time in my own head navigating the next social occasion. How am I going to get through that? Who do I need to talk to? How do I need to show up? What do I need in that moment to make this easier for myself? I spent so long coaching myself, really, if I think about it, and that in my own head and thinking about it, that when it got to that 100 days, that conversation was actually a bit easier because I knew that there was no going back. There was no going back for me. So when I actually had that conversation, I said it with conviction. I was confident when I said it. I was clear, and she understood. And I think had I not been through that initial, if it was a week into it and I said, oh, I'm not drinking this weekend, there would have been the age old, oh, for God's sake, you're not going to ruin the weekend. Don't be stupid. Dale will pick you up. Or she knew she wouldn't have to say anything. I'd have a glass of wine eventually, and then we would be back to the old ways. That at that 100-day mark, I'd done enough. So that conversation was actually a lot easier than it could have been.
I love that. I love that idea of making it your life and making it your passion, just the same as you did with choosing that wine on the weekend. That's such a beautiful way to look at it. It's so, so true. I think for the first 12 months for me, it was pretty much all consuming. Like I was still working every day. I went straight back into full-time work after rehab, but I was like immersed in recovery every single day in one way or another.
People make that mistake, don't they? I think that because they think their starting point is different from somebody else, just because they won't give themselves a label or whatever they want to do, they think that there are so many differences, that it needs handling differently. Well, they don't. It's just the way that you become sober is different. They don't have to be different for a different style drinker. For someone that daily drinks or somebody that drinks at a weekend, because ultimately, and I say this a lot, just because you don't drink daily, if you can't get through a weekend, there's something more going on there.
Yeah.
So just because you can get past a day, if you can't get past a weekend, how does that differ? I'm trying not to delve into that topic that I think a lot of people get very caught up in, but yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? It's a big one. And whatever route you take to becoming alcohol free, good for you.
Yeah, that's right. We can talk about how incredible it is and how much it's changed both of our lives, but it does come back to that fact of like, you've got to want it, right? Like we were saying, because it does require sacrifice. It's not necessarily the easier, softer way, but it is by far the more rewarding path.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Jodie, tell me more about SoberFlourish. This has just been such an incredible community that you've built starting online. Now, you didn't come from a social media background, like you started this Instagram account really to track your own journey, and it's grown into this incredible community. You're now coaching other people. Tell me how that blossomed. How did that grow, and how has that impacted your own recovery journey?
Okay, so I have been in digital marketing for the last 16 plus years, I think.
There you
So
go.
I've always had a good understanding of around how an online presence needs to look in terms of kind of like a brand consistency. Um, and it would be wrong of me to say that I had no experience in social media. I'm not a social media
Yeah.
manager. But I've always had a good understanding of what a website needs to look like around SEO, paid advertising. So when I started that digital diary, there was still never any intention of it becoming anything bigger than that. But it would be wrong of me to say that I didn't have any experience in that field. Now, don't get me wrong, for the first year, that account didn't grow as quickly as it has done in the past year. I think that there are a lot of tricks and a lot of things that people think that they can implement to make an account grow. And I think that you'd be there a very, very long time if you thought that it works like that. But ultimately, I've just shown up every day, Ash. I've shown up every single day. I've posted every single day on that account, and engaged with others and answered questions and sent millions and millions and millions of voice notes. But that account, I think, is just it's a sign of the times. It's a sign of the fact that there's so many more people are invested in their wellness journey. It doesn't all have to be around sobriety and being sober and am I an alcoholic or am I not an alcoholic or whatever. I think a lot of the stigma seems to be being removed. Thank God around all of this that people are feeling more comfortable to show up and share and comment without judgment, without fear of judgment. I don't know whether I've answered the question there.
Yeah, I'm wondering, were you nervous to put yourself out there around this particular topic? Because there is still stigma in some circles. I agree we've come a long way, but there is, and you've still, well, let's say for right now in this very moment, still have a corporate job that you had to consider. Like,
Yeah.
what played through your mind making the decision to go public?
Again, I didn't overthink it. It was just something that I did. And again, upon reflection, maybe some people wouldn't have done that, but I have been really open and really honest, and I've got nothing to hide. I think that because I know deep down that there are millions of people in the same situation that I was in, I know it. I'm surrounded by people like that, whether it's at work or whether it's in my personal life or whatever, it's everywhere. And I think because I know that, and I'm able to kind of just show up authentically because I'm doing nothing wrong. This is me being open and honest. This is my start point. I wanted to make a change to make things better for myself, make things better for my family, achieve my goals, etc. What am I hiding from?
That's
I
so
didn't
beautiful.
overthink it. I didn't overthink it because now, again, if I look back and think, well, if I really do think that through, maybe you should do that with fairy steps because you have a respectable position for a big brand, a very big brand, and people could make accusation. It's being comfortable with the accusation. It's being comfortable with that judgment. It's being comfortable with what people want to project on you because you already know the truth. If you know your truth, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and I think like more now than ever,
mm,
choosing a sober life is just, it's a health choice.
mm,
People are doing it because they want a better quality life, not necessarily because they were a fall down drunk alcoholic. It also doesn't matter if you were or you are, like it
absolutely
doesn't
not.
matter. It's
Yeah,
the fact that you are making the decision to change and to step
yeah,
into what feels like probably a really scary, overwhelming space and say, you know what, I'm done. I want to be better. I want to do better, and this is the choice that I'm going to make.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's it's just it's that being clear. And the way I always frame it is that I was a grey area drinker. I was in the middle. I had no off switch. Make of that what you will. We don't have to
Yeah.
get into a long conversation about it because this is my choice. Um, So yeah, so you were asking about SoberFlourish, weren't you?
Yeah.
That has changed dramatically. Like I say, it has dramatically changed, which is wonderful. But the intention was only ever, it was a switch from my digital journey to I actually really want to help other people. I want to help other people to see that there is a way through, that this is normal. There are an absolute shitload of us out there, and that this is doable. And actually, on the other side of what is deemed as very normal drinking is utter transformation.
Mm.
It's a completely different life. And again, it's going back to that kind of starting point. People think that you've got to have this ultimate rock bottom for your life to be different.
Mm.
But that's not true. On the outside, someone would have said to me, "Well, you haven't got a drinking problem, so what are you capable of?" Do you know what I mean? Life
100%. Oh
isn't
my
bad
God.
now. What can possibly change for you? And
Yeah.
then in removing that and all of those things come in as the byproduct of it, I just want to share it. I just want to
Mm.
share it and kind of go, see, I told you. And I just think
Totally.
how different would the world be if everybody was to be able to stop doing that to themselves every weekend.
Mm.
I'm not going to get on my soapbox about it, but we're capable of so much more than we think we are. We have
Mm-hmm.
so much more to give, don't we, than we ever thought was possible.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I say, it's when you choose to step into sobriety, you don't get your old life back. You get a brand new one.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I've had a couple of really close girlfriends in the last couple of years quit drinking and they had no issue with alcohol. Like
Mm,
they would drink on the weekends.
yeah.
Sometimes they'd have a bit much, but a lot of the time they would just kind of socially drink and they've still chosen to remove it because
Mhm.
they just wanted to see what life was like on the other side. And they're like, this is amazing. This is
Yeah.
incredible. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going back.
Yeah.
So
And
cool.
it's interesting to hear the conversation. So I've just launched my dry January program this month. So we've cut that closed the doors to it just a couple of days ago. And it's really interesting listening to the conversations with the ladies and people that I'm talking to one. They have no idea what is to come or what the potential
Mm.
that is there. Oh, I'm just gonna have a break. And there's people, business owners that will only drink at a weekend,
Mm.
a bit more than they want to, which is the reason why they're taking the break, etc. But it excites me to know, or it excites me that I know that if they continue with this, what is to come?
Mm. Mm. That's so true. I feel like this is a good segue into the next question I have because I think that your answer is going to be tied up into the fact that you can now hold a lot more.
Yeah.
But tell me, Jodie, like you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a full time professional, and you have your own business. How do you manage all of that? And you touched on mum guilt before. How do you deal with the mum guilt?
I get up early, Ash. If I think about it, I used to wake up at 7 every day with the kids. I get up at 5 now. So I have 2 hours every single day before they even wake up. So I'm home before the kids wake up. Obviously, Dale's here. I don't leave them home. I'm not a monster. Um, but I'm home. I'm home before they even wake up. So that's two
Mm.
hours a day that I'm able to get in the gym. I start answering my messages. I get ahead on my emails whilst I'm on the stairs to hell. Um,
Yeah.
but that I think does really help because I do notice as well if I don't get to the gym, the day spirals and it runs away without me. But yeah, I have to be very, very organized. It's something that I've always been really crap at as well. Having a structured day and being organized, I absolutely have to be. Um, it's been a lot. It has been a lot. And
Mm.
as you know, I 100% reached an overwhelm point this year, where running a business, being a full-time professional and having a team to run at work also, and then being a mum. And I have a close family too. I have elderly grandparents. I have a brother that's a similar age to me that has a hectic life and a newborn baby and his own things, etc. It's a lot, and I did reach a point, like I said before, that I was completely at a fork in the road, where it's not sustainable. If you've got, I think personally, and again, people that are listening may disagree, and my hat off to you if you are Superman or Superwoman and can kind of navigate all of that. But I've completely lost my train of thought now.
Tell me, when you got to that fork in the road, when you knew you were like, I'm at a point where I something's got to give. What did you do in that moment?
So I had lots of plans. I had lots of goals, etc., for this year, and one of them was to start saying yes to more things. And I know we were chatting, and you'd asked me to come on your podcast, and I was like, yes, I can't wait. But unfortunately, that coincided with that time where I'd hit that fork in the road, and I was feeling super overwhelmed. And it was coming closer and coming closer. And I remember reaching out to you and saying, Ash, I'm not in a good place. I can't show up as myself. I can't show up as the true version of myself, because if I do, I haven't got a lot to give right now. And you were incredible. And I'd been listening to your other podcast, and it was around that kind of feminine energy, and which I'm shocking at showing up as, and I'm working on that. I really, really am. Spend a lot of time in my masculine energy, focusing on the business, etc., etc. And there, I just reached out to you and just said, I can't do it now. It's just not the right time. And we had a back and forth on voice notes, and there was something that you said to me, which was, you are in this season for a reason. And I don't know what it was. It was like this divine intervention moment. Like fireworks went off, and I was thinking, you are so right. Because ultimately, I had always wanted SoberFlourish to become something bigger. As soon as I started working with clients, the feeling that I got from that and the life that it gives me, knowing that I found my purpose, there was no way that that wasn't going to become something full-time for me, that was going to be the thing that I wanted to do. But I'd always battled with this. I've had 20 years in corporate. I've worked my arse off to get to where I am. I've climbed the corporate ladder. This is my identity. I'm a corporate girly. That's just what I've always done. And it's that battle between, are you really going to try and move into being self-employed and doing this over here? Are you stupid? It's a massive risk. What is, as if that's going to be your reality. And when you said that you're in this season for a reason, it made me think, look, if you don't do this now, if you don't make this change now, when are you going to do it? And I knew that because of the timing, I was going to go back into work, and I work in gifting, going into Christmas, the busiest peak period that we have. I was going to get my Dry January program ready, answer and support and be there for a lot of ladies throughout January. I was already at potential burnout. I was going to dust myself off. I was going to go back to work, put the smile back on again, and just be everything to everybody, and then potentially make myself poorly. So in that, you're in this season for a reason. It made me check in, and literally Dell got back from holiday with the boys. They'd been away for a week because it was half term, and I think I was working. I can't remember. As soon as he came back, I said, I'm going to hand my notice in. I'm going to do it. And he said, bloody well, go for it.
Yes. I get goosebumps. Oh, I'm so happy for you, Jodi.
I needed that. I didn't know that I needed that. I did make in my vision board, in my goals, I had verbalized it with Dale, and I had said that by Christmas next year, I want to have a plan, or at least have handed my notice in. That was a goal of mine. But as it came closer, it was something I stopped talking about because I was petrified. So I just didn't even acknowledge it. And it was almost like I'd forgotten about that. So when you mentioned that, it was like a spark went off. It's like, yes, this is it. What am I doing? What am I doing? So thank you. Thank you. I know I've thanked you before, but that has changed the trajectory for me 100%. So I'm 2 months in, got 1 month left, and then I will be full-time self-employed.
In your business, living your passion and your purpose. Oh my goodness. Oh, that just brings me so much joy. I'm so happy for you. And, you know, that was you. Like you had the intuition and the knowing to reach out, firstly to reach out at that time and be honest and be vulnerable. You could have shot me a 2-sentence message, and you didn't. You voice noted me, you spoke for a couple of minutes and you just let your insides turn into your outsides, and you let me see your heart, Jodi. And that's, you know, as humans, when we let each other see our rawness and our vulnerability, that's when we can help each other most, because we just went straight in heart to heart connection. And I was like, I remember that feeling. And it's like, that's the beauty of this connection that we get to have in this life that we're living. And you took the action, you got vulnerable, and then when you had that knowing and you were like, oh, this is it, there's no going back, you took the action, you handed in your notice, and now you get to step into, in your 3rd year of sobriety, this incredible new chapter.
Yeah. But that, and again, I know I've said it and I said it again, but thank you, because yes, you say I'm a bit of a bugger with voice notes, but I'm not an open person. I'm not the sort of person that will be vulnerable with everybody. So you have obviously, even though you're all the way over there, all the way over there, you're showing up so well as yourself that you're enabling other people to feel that they can be vulnerable with, actually, in essence, a complete stranger. And I'm not normally like that. So there we are.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you, honey. Bless you. I can't wait to see what comes out this year. I'm going to be following along very, very closely. Okay, we're heading towards the end of the conversation, and there's a couple more questions that I've got up my sleeve for you. So second last, I want to know if you could go back and talk to the version of yourself that was on day 1 of that 100-day challenge, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
It's going to be okay. You might not think that you can do this, but you're going to. You're going to surprise yourself. And it's all going to be all right.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyone listening along that's early on, listen to those words, because they couldn't be more true. All right. We like to close out this show with a bit of a tradition, and it's where I ask you to please share with me your 3 non-negotiables for living a happy, authentic, and free life.
Happy, authentic, and free life. Show up. Even when you don't want to. Even when it feels hard. Show up. You said 3 words.
They can be 3 things, 3 words. I feel like exercise or movement might be one of yours.
Yeah. I think, movement without a doubt. And connection. Connection for me is a big one. It's something that I've not really been that great at. Through a few girl relationships that broke down in the past, it made me recoil massively and be afraid of connecting with others through fear of being hurt again. And it's something that is a big focus of mine at the moment, is reconnecting, in that realization that the past isn't going to repeat itself, and that there's so much goodness in connecting with other like-minded people. So connection is a huge one for me, a huge one. So connection, movement, I can't remember what I said at the beginning.
and showing up. That's perfect. That's perfect, and such a good way to end our conversation today. Jodi, if people want to find out more about what you do, where can they go?
Okay, so I have my Instagram, which is SoberFlourish. I have a website, which is SoberFlourish.co.uk. I also have another website, which is where I host my business mentoring, which is JodiClark.co.uk. Or you could just drop me an email at hello@SoberFlourish.com.
Beautiful. I will pop all of that information in the episode show notes so people can reach out. And once again, Jodi, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining me here today. This conversation was well worth the wait, and I absolutely adore you. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to staying in touch and watching what you achieve this year. When we recover loudly, no one need suffer in silence. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do.
Thank you for having me.